right, everybody. As we hear the delayed background noise.
That was my phone.
um,
Pulling you guys up. Drop your chat. Drop your comments in the chat.
I'm glad somebody's watching. Welcome back.
I'm watching us.
Watching. But just in case anybody was wondering, we are watching our own show as it goes live.
Gotta get those views up, baby. Gotta get those views up. Let's go.
Guys, welcome back to the 7 Figures or Bust podcast, episode 103, the number one podcast in the world for growing your insurance business. Christian Brindle, Glenn Shelton, and we got a freaking doozy of an episode.
Huge one. Big one.
Man, there's so much to get into, right? We're going to have a conversation about this Allstate situation, right? With them pulling their Med Supp product. We'll kind of walk through the timeline of this a little bit. And then that will lead to a grandiose conversation on,
yes,
man, is Med Supp in trouble? What's happening in the Med Supp world right now? Man, is there any banter we want to get out of the way before we get into this? Because once we start going, we're gonna go. We gotta go. It's like a road trip. We gotta get there in time. We gotta leave by 6 a.m.
Oh God. I'm still recovering. So I told you guys I went to that baseball game a couple nights ago. At this game, I was eating everything. I had Dippin' Dots.
Wow.
I had a hot dog. Before the game, I had Chick-fil-A. I'm still recovering. If you're still on your diet, I wanted to share this with you this morning to encourage you to stick to it because I feel like trash still. I'm still recovering from my binge eating.
So before you get into that, just to kind of answer that question, I'm still on my diet. I took Violet out last night for pizza and ice cream. I did get pizza, so I cheated a little bit there. Every time I have cheated so far in these first 5 weeks or so, there's been 3 occasions that I had pizza for a meal.
It's your kryptonite.
That's my vice. I love pizza. And so we went out to this pizza place nearby our house. It's so good. Like they cook it like in a brick oven, right in front of you.
Ooh.
I love this place. So
what's your go-to pizza order? What's your toppings?
If I could only have one piece of pizza to last me the rest of my life, I'm gonna
pepperoni guy, aren't you?
I'm gonna get pepperoni, but last night I got taco pizza.
Oh, yeah. Look at you venturing out. How was it?
It was delicious. It had ground beef, taco sauce, a little bit of sour cream, tomatoes.
I am starving.
It was really good.
That sounds amazing.
But then we go to Baskin Robbins for ice cream, and I did not partake in the ice cream. I sat and watched.
Did you consider?
I looked around. You
looked around. You shopped.
I considered a couple of toppings, a couple of flavors, but I withheld. But yes, no, I'm still on my diet. I am still on my diet.
I got this atrocious Dippin' Dots the other night. They were out of a couple of the flavors. My nephew and my son go for this one called Cookie Monster. It's blue. It had cookie dough and it had like Oreos in it.
It's never good when it's blue.
No. I'm looking at this. I'm looking at this thing. I'm looking at this, and I was like, all right, whatever. I was like, I'll just get what they're having. Like, this is not something I would order, but that was my first thought too. Is I'm like, this is not gonna sit well with me. I'm like, putting something blue inside of my body is not gonna sit well with me. And it's one of those things where it's like, you're at the game, you just want to have a good time. I'm eating everything, and the combination of like staying up late, which by the way, it was like 11:30 when I went to bed that night, which used to be like, that was like my average. I used to go to bed at like midnight. That was like my normal time, but staying up late, eating all this crap food, driving for all that time that I had to sit in the car. I'm just like, I felt so old. I just felt so old. I'm like, these are the things like young Glenn would have done without even thinking twice. Like, this was nothing. This is nothing.
And like, probably I would imagine if you looked back even 5 years ago, that would have been a piece of cake. No problem. not even going back that long, not even going back that far.
See, part of it though is like just your body gets so, the homeostasis that your body craves, right? Your body just wants the same. It wants a baseline. It gets used to whatever the normal is. If you eat McDonald's every day, your body, you won't really necessarily have like an adverse reaction to it, right?
Right.
If you're used to not eating McDonald's and then you go and you have a huge meal at McDonald's, you probably won't feel great. So it's almost like the catch-22 of being healthier is like you can't go do these. I mean, if you get to the point where you're like, hey, I'm going to take a break from my diet, and you're like, I'm going to go get a giant bowl of ice cream with Violet, like, sure, you will probably be down for like 12 hours. You'll probably be like,
right. I believe it. I totally believe it. Like
Pepto-Bismol, you're gonna be like
Tums, Pepto-Bismol,
yes.
Mixing them together, right?
Yeah,
we're driving.
Exactly right.
So we eat the pizza, right? We're driving to Baskin Robbins, and I lean over to Stormy, and I'm like, hey, I don't want to be a downer. I'm like, but are you guys okay if I don't get any ice cream? She's like, it's up to you. You get what you want. If you don't want it, don't get it. And I'm like, okay. She's like, and I'm explaining to her, I'm like, I've had a couple slip ups where I've had some pizza. That's kind of the only cheat food I've had, and
which
3
isn't
times.
bad by any means in the grand scheme of what you could be cheating.
And it's not even like. It's 3 times in 5 weeks. I feel pretty good about that.
Yeah, you should.
And
absolutely.
And so, I explained to her, I'm like, I know I cheated with the pizza, but I'm like, it would feel like such a small win to me if I just continuously kept this streak going of like no super sugary, fatty trash. Because I love all of that, all of it. Oh, like. I love ice cream. I love cookies. I love it all. Like I am.
What's your number one junk food item? Like, what's the one thing that you're like, this would be it? You're in a bunker, the world's ending, and you've got to have at least one junk food item with you. What is it?
This might be kind of a cheat answer, but it's probably one of my coffees. Like one of my really sugary.
You want your spoon. You want the coffee you drink with a spoon.
If I took that out of it, it's probably like a hot fudge sundae or something like that.
Oh, that's a classic. That's a good one.
Or a milk.
I'm a fiend for chips. I love chips. I'm obsessed with chips.
Yeah.
My wife will oftentimes avoid buying chips because she's like, if I buy this, you're just going to eat the whole bag. You're just going to sit. And it's true. It is true. I will sit down, and especially like you're watching TV, you're watching the game, you're watching a show, movie, whatever, and you're not really thinking. You're just kind of like mindless. There's something about the crunch. I pretty much did it yesterday, to be honest. I'm going to be honest with everybody right now. They have really good chips.
Are you you made so much progress basically in the last year, right?
Yeah.
Are you undoing all of that progress now? Like, is that where we're headed?
Well, so I'll tell you what happened. Okay, mindset wise. I started like this time last year. I was very diet food focused. I wasn't working out that much. I was working out a couple times a week, mostly like running. I was very conscientious of what I was eating. Like very hyper focused on that. I've slowly transitioned to working out a ton, almost every single day. I'm lifting. And the story I'm telling myself is I don't have to worry about what I'm eating as much because I'm working out so much. And I think there's a little bit of truth to that. But after this week, I feel more and more like there's a balance in here somewhere. Right.
Yeah,
like there's a balance in here somewhere that I need to achieve.
Yeah. I feel like what I've always heard, and by no means am I any type of expert, but I've always
expert, Dr. Christian Brindle.
That's a scary thought. But I've always heard that like diet is at least 80% of it, if not more. And I kind of really grasped onto that. I'm doing a pretty good job exercising. Last week I only did it 3 times, but most weeks during this stretch I've been doing it 4 times, if not 5 times. So I've been trying to be really good about it, but my ideal goal is to make sure that I'm exercising and I'm working out 5 days a week, and then like weekends I'm not. But maybe it would be easier for me if I just did it every day, because that habit, the schedule of it all.
That's part of it. I mean, again, I took yesterday off because I was so busy and I was driving, and today I felt like it was such an uphill battle in the gym this morning. I don't know, it was a combination of, again, trying to get through all that junk food I ate and taking yesterday off and just all of that. But I do feel like it's genuinely easier when I'm in that routine. I'm just doing it every day. There's, and I'm thinking when I talk to other people, or like when you see like people who are, it could be like a personal trainer. You're watching like videos from like a personal trainer, and they're talking about how you can achieve better results in the gym. It definitely comes back to what you're eating, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
If you're eating consistently crap food compared to someone who's eating, high protein, clean food, and you guys do the same workouts, I'm sure that if you were to A/B test that, right, the person who's eating better is going to have better results, for sure.
Yeah. The biggest thing I've struggled with a lot is my wife, because she's pregnant, she's had all these crazy cravings. She keeps buying these sugar cookies. They're like bite-sized, like this big.
Oh.
And so they're from Swig.
Soft?
Oh,
they're so soft.
They have like multiple colored chips in them, and like green and like yellow and red, and
those colors.
They're like eating a chip. It's like
a chip cookie. That's like my heroin. Right,
they're like
there.
That
that's
size. You know what I mean? So
oh my gosh,
you can pop them.
You eat 20 of them, and you're like, "What just happened?"
Yeah,
you just black out.
So when she would buy those, I would routinely like find them and eat them all. And there'd be nothing left for her.
That sounds amazing. I love I said chips earlier. Cookies are right. They're cookies and chips. That's definitely and a soft sugar cookie.
Oof.
So good. What's your favorite cookie if you can only pick one cookie?
Probably a sugar cookie. Probably that type of cookie.
Cookie.
Or Girl Scout cookies. Girl Scout cookies are.
There's a lot of girls. What Girl Scout cookies?
Thin Mints. It depends on my mood, but Thin Mints, Samoas. I can't remember.
Mints are the ultimate for sure.
I can't
remember. There's a lemon cookie. They have a chocolate chip cookie.
I don't like either one of those too much. I'm trying to think of what the one's called that has like the caramel on the inside. You know what I mean? It's like chocolate with like.
Oh.
What's that called?
Oh, I know the one you're talking about. I didn't love that. Like, can I blow your mind really fast, and then we can move on past food?
Of course.
So, cookie fiend here, and I do love Girl Scout cookies, Thin Mints especially. I could eat a whole sleeve of Thin Mints. Love Thin Mints.
I have many times.
Oh, we're gonna lose the whole audience. They're like, why are they talking about food? Where's the insurance stuff?
There's Med Supp talk.
I'm reading about Girl Scout cookies. And
I'm reading the comments.
Probably the diabetes education. Today's sponsor, Ozempic. I'm reading about Girl Scout cookies. And I have Girl Scout cookies in the house. And I'm reading about it. And I'm reading that there's 2 different types of manufacturers for Girl Scout cookies. Did you know this?
No, I had no idea.
It's like Costco's value brand versus Walmart's value brand is like the comparison here. So depending on the Girl Scout troop, they will order from different suppliers. And the suppliers it's not exactly the same. They have slightly different names. So it's like one is the legit Thin Mints, Girl Scout cookies. The other one is like mint cookies. And like, so it's slightly different names. I read this, I, in a panic, drop my phone, run to my pantry. I need to know if I have the real ones or if I have the knockoffs in my house. Sure enough, I had the knockoffs, which was really disappointing. I felt like some Girl Scouts absolutely hustled me.
Could you tell the difference at all before that?
Okay, that's fair.
Did it taste?
I didn't really notice.
Like, did it taste any different than what you remembered?
I didn't really notice. Everyone online, when I really went down this rabbit hole, everyone online says there's a slight difference, that it's not exactly the same. I feel like if you blindfolded me and we really did this, I think I would know. I would know. So, but that's, hey, PSA for everybody. When you're buying Girl Scout cookies, look at the box. They're either buying from it's like an A or a B, and it's like the legit brand or the value brand. I don't know if there's like more margin. I don't know if they're literally hustling like this. They're like, get the knockoffs. We're gonna make 20% more this season. I don't know. I don't know the math behind it. Okay.
It's like buying a Gucci product, right? If it's being sold out of a trunk, it's probably from Mexico. It's not real.
And that little girl's selling it to you. Of course, you're just gonna pull out your cash and be like, "Take my money." Like, whoever's behind the scenes pulling those strings, hats off to you, and all that extra money you're making. Okay.
Let's shift gears into the sponsor, and then that way we can go uninterrupted on this Med Supp topic because there's a lot to talk about.
There is.
Glenn, episode 103. Who is our sponsor this morning?
Guys, this morning on the Seven Figures or Bust podcast, this episode is brought to you by Seven Figure University. You can head over to sevenfigureu.com right now. We have created a library of video training for Medicare and final expense and senior insurance agents that is bar none one of the most comprehensive libraries I have ever seen. It covers all sorts of things that you need to be successful. Over 250 videos. You're talking about hours and hours and hours and hours of content on training on how to market, training on specific carriers, training on webinars, seminars, training on phone scripts, training on all sorts of things that you need to be successful as an agent. Normally, access to this university is a one-time payment of $5,000. Right now, for just a few more weeks until the end of the month, so you got 14 days roughly, so 2 weeks from right now, you can get access for a one-time payment of $695, essentially one additional sale, which I am willing to go out on a limb right now. And if you actually watch any of this content, I will guarantee you can get one additional sale this year from this university. It will pay for itself. It'll pay for itself 10 times over. Absolutely. Head over to sevenfigureu.com, 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 and enroll today. Don't wait.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. All right, let's shift gears. I think the best place to start is probably this overall Allstate conversation. So if I may, let's start at the beginning of this whole thing. So Allstate, as many of you know, their claim to fame is in the P&C world, right? That's where they live. That's where they're a giant. That's where they're extremely savvy, and it's their bread and butter, right? So there was a company, for those of you that have been around probably even a few years or more, you probably remember this. There's a company called National General that is doing Medicare Supplement business, that's doing short-term medical plans, in a time where that was really a big thing. There were entire agencies structuring their attack based on that, right? And, it was designed for people that were that were healthy, didn't need to use their plan a lot, and wealthy couldn't get a subsidy on the ACA or the marketplace, right? And so a lot of times the premiums were lower. It gave people protection, but it was really catastrophic coverage, had a lot of limitations on what it would cover. But you could, in most states, do 12, 24, and in some states, 36-month terms of coverage. And so I feel like that's where they really kind of broke out for the most part. And they did other products as well, like indemnity plans, dental plans. They still do. I shouldn't say they don't do these anymore. This isn't a eulogy for the overall company. But anyway, so
peace, Allstate.
So National General, right? Allstate comes in and buys National General, which we found out pretty recently, an idea of that. We won't go into the specifics of that, but like it's in the billions, right? That
2021.
Yeah, that Allstate comes in and purchases National General. So National General then turns into Allstate. And they've had two contracts. They've had the senior contract and the under 65 contract, which is their short-term medical plans, et cetera, et cetera. Senior contract was their Med Supp. Well, I had been saying really from the beginning that I did not trust their Medicare Supplement product. I've been saying it in the Facebook group. I've been saying it in private conversations when people have been asking me. We had the contract. We were offering it to agents if they wanted it. It wasn't one we were telling agents, you absolutely have to have this contract necessarily. But it was something we had. But internally, I was trying to steer away from it as much as possible. We wrote a couple. We didn't write a lot. Basically, when we were in a pinch situation, they were kind of our only option. But, so fast forward 2021 to now, what we've seen from Allstate is in a lot of markets, rate increases not looking great, rate increases going quite a bit. A lot of carriers have done that, to be fair, right? Which we'll get into in the broader Medicare supplement conversation in a little bit. But Allstate, within the last couple of weeks, puts it out there that they're slashing commissions in a lot of states. Most states, from what I was able to see when I finally saw commission schedules, they were lowering the commissions by about 4%. So if, let's say, your street level commission was 22%, for example, in a state, went down to 18. And that kind of caused some ruckus. I don't think we talked about it on the show, but that was kind of a talking point for agents. Then, within a matter of weeks, they put it out, and the news officially drops yesterday. And there's some confusion about this, so I'm going to try to clear it up best I can.
Please do.
Number one, they put out there that they're only accepting paper apps. So people are thinking, oh, they're doing paper apps. They're not, for their Med Supp product, not understanding that the real news behind this is that they've decided to file to pull their Med Supp product for new business in the entire country. The paper apps portion of it is essentially to suppress business until they can get that done, because it takes time. They have to file with each department of insurance in every state that they're in. And so they're trying to suppress business until they can officially have the product line shut down. They also decided to stop doing any type of advanced commissions. Everything is as earned on new business that's done over this period of time. I don't know why you would submit any business at this point, even though you can through paper apps. But yeah, that's kind of the story. And so before I get into kind of like what I believe the repercussions of that will be, because we've seen this before with other carriers, right? We've seen this before when they close off a book of business, they stop playing in the Med Supp space. We've seen what that does to members and their rates over time. But before I go into that at all, what is your reaction to this?
I remember when I first heard Allstate offers Medicare Supplement, and my first reaction was like, really? It felt weird. It felt so out of place to me. And my gut reaction to that is, why would you put any sort of significant portion of your portfolio with a company that doesn't specialize in what you're trying to do. I mean, I think there's probably a lot of analogies out there that you could get into, like, companies that maybe dabble in something else that's not their specialty. And then if you buy it from them and then you get disappointed by it. So out the gate, learning that they're offering Medicare Supplement, I was already turned off by it because I'm thinking this isn't what they do. This isn't their specialty. So to see that it's come full circle now and they're basically pulling out, I'm not really surprised. I think this is another situation where what we're seeing online in the social media world, especially, is people grabbing this type of news and they're wanting to fan the flames. They're wanting to make this something it's not. I think that's the thing that's important to discuss here too with this whole story is the Chicken Littles, you Chicken Littles out there. And I also wanted to admit on the pod today too, I've been reading a lot of news the past week. There's so much negative news out there. There's so much negativity. It is easy to get sucked in. I've had my own little Chicken Little moments this week, okay? So I'm not just pointing fingers, okay? I'm not just pointing fingers, but we've got to be careful with jumping to conclusions, which I think a lot of you are. I see the comments constantly. But that's kind of that was my initial reaction to kind of this whole story, and Allstate even offering a Med Supp to begin with felt out of place. Yeah.
So I'll kind of talk about what this means for those of you that haven't been around for this, because this is not the first time we've seen a carrier do something like this. We've seen it a lot. As long as I can remember, I can think of all types of product lines that have just vanished. Oxford Life was kind of a hot thing when I first started, right? They were paying like 50% on guaranteed issue. That didn't go great. You had like Sentinels of the world. You've had all kinds of Mutual of Omaha companies close off their blocks of business and roll out new Mutual of Omaha companies. Equitable Life and Casualty, I mentioned the other day on the show, right?
Yep.
We used to sell a lot of their Med Supp. They were one of our top Med Supp carriers. They had a really slick telephonic app. One of my favorite companies to work with. They were here in Utah, went to their offices multiple times. Like, that was kind of heartbreaking for me when they turned into Silac and went the way they went. But anytime you see this, history tells us that the expectation you can have is the company closes off a block of business. When that happens, they're not taking in new business and new revenue for that block of business, and the current block of business just kind of sits there. They're not going to lose their plans. Med Supps are guaranteed renewable, but they're not bringing in new revenue, and that block of business continues to age and continues to get less and less healthy. Just statistics show that. And the claims end up going up as a result. To make up for the difference of the extra cost they're incurring with the lack of new revenue coming in, they make up the difference by jacking the rates up to the moon.
Premiums go up.
We've seen it time and time again.
Over and over.
Huge rate increases, 20, 30, 40, 50% rate increases. So that's what I would expect to see. I want to take one more moment to say that when will you guys learn I'm a prophet? I don't get these things wrong. I don't get them wrong.
No.
How many times have I said that on the show this year?
I thought the post you made was enough, but we're circling back on this. He really wants his flowers, you guys. Can someone please deliver him his flowers, okay? He needs them.
I feel like there's been at least 3 situations that we've talked about on the podcast this year that I have pointed back to multiple years ago. I've been saying this would happen, and then it happened.
Inflation Reduction Act was a big one. I think your initial reaction to the new administration was like the day after the election. Yeah, I think that was another one you've gotten right so far. It's early. It's early. It could take a left turn, but I feel like we're already seeing some positive movement in that direction. Allstate. What else? And
those would probably be my three. Those would probably be my big three.
You really want to tally them up right now? We can keep going, okay? We can keep tallying for everybody.
But I'm just saying, I can't think of one that I've gotten wrong on these positions I've taken. If you guys have one, let me know. I'm open-minded. I'm glad to hear it. But
do you have any new revelations you'd like to share right now? Any predictions? Do you want to throw a prediction out right now that you haven't publicly made? You're feeling confident right now? Think about it.
So this kind of falls into the Med Supp conversation. So maybe we pivot into that broader conversation a little bit. So I said almost probably 2.5 years ago in a video, I reposted it in the group this year.
Okay.
I said I thought within 5 years Med Supp was in trouble. And I think we are seeing some of that. Not from this, right? We've always had companies decide to exit the Med Supp space. Not new information. That being said, though, we're seeing an influx of birthday rule states. We're seeing rate increases as high as I've ever seen from multiple companies in multiple states across the country. And we're seeing a lot of Med Supp companies I have noticed start really leaning into high deductible plans. When high deductible plans, I feel like, are your saving grace, I think you're in trouble. I think your product line's in trouble, right? Like Plan G is no longer viable is what I'm hearing from some people that are big in the Med Supp space. Plan N might not even be that viable. We were sold that Plan N from the Med Supp purists was going to be the savior. Plan N is having just as high of rate increases as F and G, in some states and some carriers more. Right. So like
I do remember many years ago people talking about Plan N like it was the perfect Med Supp.
It was around 2020, the macro conversation, right? The macro bill, right? They grandfather away Plan F. They make Plan G now available for guaranteed issue business, which previously it wasn't. So the whole idea was Plan N doesn't participate in guaranteed issue business. There's co-pays for doctors. There's going to be less utilization because of that. And blah, 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 blah. Well, that hasn't worked out. So we talked earlier in the year about a funeral for Med Supp, but it's looking like my 5-year prediction a few years ago is on the trajectory. I don't want to be right on that one, but it's not looking good, in my opinion.
So this was discussed in the group recently. It's been coming up more and more. The future of Med Supp thing, and there was some pushback in the comments.
And there always will be, even when there
pushback on this.
Even when there's 2% market share, when we're at that point, there will be pushback. There will always be pushback.
The rebellion.
Yeah.
The rebellion.
But I can't.
Oh my gosh!
I can't help but think as things just kind of dominoes keep falling, new developments keep happening.
Oh no! Oh no! Not again!
So as we stand here today, are we approaching a funeral for the Medicare Supplement product? I certainly hope not. But you ask me, good sir, what prediction am I making? I'm feeling like I'm going to end up being right about a prediction I have made. It's not a new one, but it will be a sad day when we all meet together for the funeral.
The spouse of Medicare Supplement would like to say a few words.
Here's the thing, right? When people feel like when I say that, they think I'm saying, and this is where the pushback I felt like came from on my post about this, that I'm saying Medicare Supplement's no good today. Like you can't sell it today. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that dominoes are falling that is making the product less and less viable, slowly but surely. The prices keep going up and up and up and up and up and up and up. That's not going to get better. People say Medicare Advantage plans are going to keep getting worse. Medicare Advantage funding doubled for next year, guys. It's doubling.
So something happened recently we haven't discussed yet. And part of the reason why Med Supp's been affected is the Inflation Reduction Act, right? They were trying to.
That was more of the
part of it.
More of the PDP's side of things.
Right. So
yeah.
Part of the Inflation Reduction Act, and this is exactly where I'm going with this, is they were trying to cap how much the beneficiary can be billed for certain prescriptions, essentially leaving the bag with the carrier, right? So now the carrier is eating the loss on prescription coverage because the pharmacy companies are still billing what they are charging for it. The beneficiary is getting capped a certain amount. And so who's picking up the bill, right? So Trump just recently announces this new executive order that's designed to, again, the goal here is to reduce the cost of pharmaceutical drugs. But this time, based on the language in the executive order, instead of it essentially having the bag left with the carriers, it's being regulated at the pharmaceutical company level, where the pharmaceutical companies will only be allowed to charge so much.
Right. Yeah.
Will this potentially change direction on the negative effects that we saw from the previous strategy? Or is this just going to be kind of more of the same?
Yeah, it's hard to say, right? Like, I don't know how much power or authority an executive order like that has. Right. You know, like the Inflation Reduction Act was passed as law
in Congress. Yeah,
went through Congress and everything like that. So that's a question I don't know the answer to. But with Med Supp, there's really two different conversations here. There's the PDP conversation, which really, in a way, has nothing to do with the Med Supp product itself. It has a lasting effect because you have to get them together. They're a package deal. So the more the PDP sucks, the less attractive Med Supp is, regardless of what's going on with the Med Supp. The Med Supp conversation of this is inflated costs and rate increases and what we're seeing. So let's take this on best case scenario. The best case scenario is, let's say that actually goes exactly as planned. That might help on the PDP side. It'll also help on the MA side, on the prescription side. It'll help on both sides. But it won't have any effect really on the Med Supp side, because Med Supps don't pay for drugs. You know, they don't pay for prescriptions. So it doesn't have any impact on their claims ratios, their loss ratios, anything like that. So we're still going to have this issue of the premiums becoming higher than they've ever been before. If anything, people feel like I'm a Medicare Advantage to the death, defender. I'm not. I promise I'm not. But if anything, I think it helps Medicare Advantage more than it helps Med Supp. Because why did so many MA plans in AEP last year cut benefits in certain areas? Some areas more than others. True. It's because they were holding more of the bag on the prescription costs. So if they're not, all of a sudden, they can offer more benefits, right? They can have lower MOOPs, they can have lower copays. So while it helps both product lines, I would argue that if it went down exactly like it was written up in the executive order, I think it helps MA just as much, if not more, because it's all grouped into one plan, one product. Whereas Med Supp, they are these different products that don't have anything to do with each other, but at the same time, they're kind of married by default. You know, you get a Med Supp, you kind of have to get a PDP, and vice versa. This episode of the 7 Figures or Bust podcast is brought to you by the 7-Figure Medicare Agent Summit. Guys, it is a fact that getting around other people that are chasing the same ambitions and destinations in their business as you is a great thing. And it can propel your business years ahead than not getting around people and networking and going to live events. The Seven Figure Medicare Agent Summit is the premier event. Every year we hear year after year after year that it is the event that has the best content. So many events nowadays, they do a lot of pitching from the stage. They're really just there to sell you things. And if nothing more than that, they're just a bunch of vendors put together and they're just nothing but networking. There's no content. The summit is the best of both worlds, you guys. The summit puts together great, fantastic speakers from all ends of the industry, and also get you in a room with like-minded individuals from all over the country that are trying to build their business just like you. The summit this year is taking place in Salt Lake City from June 22nd to 24th at the Hilton Hotel. We still have tickets available. We'd love to have you come out for the event. We are over 50% sold out at the time of recording this, but get your ticket now while you can. This event will sell out, and we'd love to see you there in Salt Lake City.
So I want to share another alarmist perspective that was in the comments on one of these posts.
Yes, please.
That I thought was interesting. And again, I use the word alarmist because it's kind of a Chicken Little idea of what does worst case scenario look like, right? Which, I'm all about planning for the worst and hoping for the best. I get that. Yeah. But I'm also, in general, I'm a very optimistic person. So I don't live in this world of worst case scenario 24/7 like I think some of you do, which, again, not even blaming you guys individually on this one. I think social media and the media machine loves to keep this front and center for everybody. Drives traffic, drives clicks.
The evil mainstream media.
That's right. They want you scared. They want you clicking those links. So here was the alarmist perspective, and this is part of the Allstate conversation. Going into AEP, if we were to see more carriers start to pull out of Medicare or suppress plans like we saw,
and continue to see.
Correct. So, seeing less options essentially than we have now or we had previously. All of a sudden, let's say it was a major carrier, okay? We don't need to say names, but let's just say it was one of the major carriers, and let's say that they were to really try to suppress hard. They're not paying commissions on new plans, they're doing paper apps only, like whatever they can do to try to limit business they're taking in.
Anthem.
And all of a sudden, this huge flow of new seniors or beneficiary people who need coverage, these other carriers are being so overwhelmed they can't take on. And now it creates almost this domino effect. That's what this comment was referring to, as this possibility of a domino effect, where if one too many carriers start to do this, all of a sudden the other carriers won't be able to, because initially you're thinking, right, from a business perspective, you'd think if carrier A is trying to limit business, carrier B would be like, I want to get as much market share as possible. But there's obviously going to be limits to this, right?
Sure.
There's limits in certain areas, especially where they can only take on so many beneficiaries. So what do you think about that idea? Is a domino effect possible? Is that a scenario? Prophet Brindle, Prophet Christian, if you could shine some light for us on this comment, this possibility, what would your response be? What do you think about this?
As I'm walking down the mountain holding the
stone tablets
with the commandments on them, I will put them to the side.
I'm holding the iPad. I have the tablets.
So here's my thought, right? I think that is a very, very, very specific scenario where a lot of things have to play out in a certain way, and I think it's a little bit of a pie in the sky concern. Now there's been people pointing out to me, they're like, when I point out the problems of Med Supp, they're like, oh yeah, well, Medicare Advantage is suppressing plans and all of which is true. None of it is wrong, but yeah. Yeah. It's like
I'm about to get you.
Yeah. Well, your mom is fat.
You got him. I own the group now. This is my group.
You ever see that?
My group.
I was watching an old episode of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air a couple weeks ago, and Uncle Phil's arguing with this other parent and their kids aren't getting along, and they're going back and forth, and he's like, I think your daughter should be institutionalized. She's a criminal. And Uncle Phil's a lawyer, and he's like, well, I think your daughter fits the criminal profile to a T. And they're going back and forth. And then the other dad's like, I think you must have a confused with your mama. And then he punches him in the face. It's my favorite.
It's been a minute since I've seen that show. It's a great show.
I haven't watched it in like 10 years. I watched it a couple episodes the other day. I was dying laughing. Anyway.
That's amazing.
So all of those things about Medicare Advantage is true. Here's what nobody wants to talk about. And I've been saying this since the beginning. I will repeat my thoughts on this. The government, the carriers, everyone that you consider the powers that be want managed care. It's easier for the government to handle. It's easier, and the carriers are more profitable. Everybody involved wants Medicare Advantage. They want managed care. So long term, if that is their priority, and I don't think anyone can dispute that's their priority, long term, that's where we're going, in my opinion. So if that is their priority and that's what they want things to be, long term, the pendulum might swing back and forth, but they will always right the ship to make Medicare Advantage more viable. They're not going to let it fall into obscurity in favor of Med Supp. I just don't believe that. And I think you look at all of the actions that have been taken, in terms of like impact on plan benefits and everything like that, it might impact MA in a negative way, but it impacts Med Supp worse most of the time. It makes Med Supp harder to be viable and all of those things. And so that's why I think the powers that be, what they want to happen is going to happen one way or another. And so I don't think Med Supp is in their plans long term. I think carriers that are in Med Supp, they want that business. They want to be competitive as long as the product's viable. But I think behind the scenes, I believe that they are looking at it from the perspective of, this is a temporary thing. This won't be here forever. And there might be some carriers that don't take that approach. Like there's some carriers that only do Med Supp, and they're probably looking at it like, we're believers, ride or die. We're here till the end kind of thing. We're going to keep making this product line viable. But I just think all of the major carriers that do both, the government, CMS, all of them want managed care. If you got them all in a room and you injected them all with truth serum, that's the answer you would be getting. Tell
me the truth.
So
tell me the truth.
So that's why it's like when I see things with Medicare Advantage, like, I just think they're going to find too big to rig. They're going to find
big to rig. So essentially you're saying, just to clarify here on this question. Yeah. So if a domino effect, and I do agree with you, like I think it would take a series of very specific things to happen to create this like perfect storm of, major carriers all trying to suppress at the same time, right? Which is what this person was alluding to. You're saying that because the government's priority is mandate, which I totally agree with you. There's no doubt in my mind, based on all the information that's out there and all the trends we've seen, and what the carriers want and what CMS want, I would absolutely go on record and say managed care is the future and this is what they want. So you believe in a perfect storm situation, the government would essentially step in to make sure that Medicare Advantage continues to move forward.
Yeah. I mean, I think with let's take what Anthem did as an example in the last month or so.
Yeah.
Anthem suppressed every regular Medicare Advantage plan they have in 49 states. They will only allow electronic apps for D-SNP business. I guarantee you CMS doesn't like that. So the more you see that, the more I believe that CMS and the government will step in and say, hey, you can't do that. And they will stop these things from happening, suppress plans, non-commissionable plans, or at least they'll give them a margin of how many plans they can do it with, right? I believe the more we see that happening, the more the government will step in. Because the government, what does CMS want? They want unbiased recommendations for the Medicare beneficiary.
Right.
That is creating more bias than ever.
Right. That's the thing that's driving me crazy too about this is they don't want steering, but if you have major carriers coming out and saying we're not paying you guys, what do you expect a Medicare broker to do? They need to get paid.
Right.
They need to make money. They need to provide for their family. They need to eat food. Like, obviously, they're going to steer that client in a certain direction.
It used to be that, some carriers would pay under street level for Medicare Advantage commission. Long time ago. And it was a lot of regional carriers that we saw it in. I didn't see it much from national carriers. But that was a thing in the MA world. They had their street level commission put out by CMS, but it was almost like a little wishy-washy. Carriers couldn't pay more than that, but they could pay under that. CMS stepped in the early years of my career and said, you can't do this. You have to pay the same as everyone else, because they wanted to prevent bias. They wanted to prevent unequal rewards for the person that's recommending the plan. And so if we want a prediction I've never given before, I think...
Whoa, everybody, notepads out, recorders out. The prophet is about to speak. Continue.
Let me put down the tablets again. I think over the next 2 to 3 years, if we continue to see what we're seeing on plan suppressions and all of that, I think CMS will step in and do something about it. I don't know what, but I think they'll do something about it, because that's been the history.
I think that's a great answer. And honestly, I didn't really look at it from that angle. But I think when you look at how disruptive a situation like that could be, where multiple large carriers who collectively are controlling the majority of the industry, it's almost like a monopoly in that sense, right? It's the same type of scenario in any industry where if too many companies start to collude together and do something that's harming the overall industry, the government steps in and they break it up. Hey, you can't price fix. Hey, you can't consolidate all of these. We saw it in the cellular market, right? The cell phone carriers. They were trying to. They've been trying to consolidate that industry over and over and over. And there were many times that mergers were put on the table where they were like, "No, you guys can't do this. You can't consolidate like this." So yeah, I think that is an interesting point. So we're getting towards the top of the hour, but there is a question here in the comments, and I feel like there's a couple questions now that I'm looking. A couple good questions.
Yeah, there's a few good ones.
And I'd like to get to these before we wrap up here. Guys, Freebie Fridays happening every Friday, including tomorrow. Every time you comment on a stream, it gives you one entry into our raffle, which will be happening tomorrow. So appreciate your comments. Please continue to drop those comments. Let's grab this one here from James. The problem is, what do all the Medicare beneficiaries do who live in areas without decent MA or no options?
Great question. And this is probably the number one thing I get pushback on. Again, it circles back to the conversation of people thinking that what the market looks like today is what it's going to be long term. Like, we're not talking about right now. So whatever areas that don't have any MA plans or any good MA plans, that's not going to last forever. You know, there's going to be expansion. There's a big national carrier that announced, I won't say the name because it's not public information, but that they're expanding into 10 different new states for next year, 2026. So, you know,
more information from the prophet today, you guys.
Well,
this has been a spiritual episode for me.
But like, you know, I think about any market, any state that I've ever done a lot of business in. Rural areas have no MA plans or limited MA plans. And what happens over time? All of a sudden they have 2 options. Then they have 3. Then they have 4. Then they have 5. And these plans are trying to compete against each other. And all of a sudden they have $0 premiums. All of a sudden the provider networks get better. The Medicare Advantage program is going to expand. Long term, we'll have plans everywhere, in every county, in every state, in the whole country. That is what will happen long term. Is it going to happen this year? No, but it will happen. Book it. It's going to happen.
Oh, another prediction from the prophet. I do see, not to mention the other part of this too, that, you know, we've seen carriers recently getting more aggressive about telehealth. Mm-hmm. You know, you talk about people in rural areas not having access to healthcare providers or benefits in network. Well, what happens when more and more can be done remotely? You know, I mean, COVID obviously accelerated telehealth in a way that we couldn't have possibly predicted, but here we are. I mean, even myself included in this, my use of telehealth has gone way up over the past 3 years.
Me too.
You know,
Me too.
Yeah. So, you know, we talk about rural areas without care. And obviously there's a lot that still can't be done through telehealth, but I think there's also a lot of growth still that telehealth could do that maybe they're not doing today. So that's going to play into this too. You know, the advancement of technology and a doctor being able to interface with someone that's remote. I think that's also part of the future here. So I don't know if you want to grab another question here before we wrap up.
Let's do a couple more. We have time, right?
Yeah.
There's good questions, I think, on here. Which one do you want to go
to? You know, I feel like you covered it in a good way, but maybe we circle back on this. You know, why do you feel like Med Supps are going to get so much worse when they don't have Part D? You know, we were talking about that Part D scenario. Maybe you could try to simplify how you explained it before.
The overall increasing cost of medical care we've seen over the past 5 years, the cost to cover items goes up. The carriers need more money to cover their own costs. Premiums go up. The higher the premiums go, in certain areas where there's viable Medicare Advantage plans, the more it becomes a no-brainer to be on a $0 premium plan, right? So like, it's really as simple as that. And then, you know, you have more and more states going the birthday rule route, which we've seen historically spikes premiums a lot. You know, so it's just like, it's not a situation of apples and apples plans, right? Like, you know, is a Med Supp product better medical coverage than an MA? Obviously. No one's debating that.
Clip that. We got him. We got him. Clip it. He said it.
But
clip it. Jake, clip it. Run it as an ad.
If your Med Supp is $250 a month to start at 65, let's say, in the near future.
Yeah, they're pricing out.
The MA is $0. Right? Like, and then, you know, you throw a PDP on top of that. $0 PDP is not going to last forever. You throw in a DVH on top of that, right? Like you're at $300 a month, you know, where you can get a $0 MA and you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I think to really simplify this whole conversation about Med Supps shrinking or it's not that they're losing benefits. It's that a Med Supp to stay in business, it's going to price out all the seniors out of the market.
Thank you.
You're talking about a fixed income senior. And for that Med Supp to continue to operate profitable, which they have to by law, they can take a loss for like 1 to 2 years, but they are legally not allowed to take a loss for more than 2 years. So they have to charge more. They have to, by law, charge more. And what happens if those premiums continue to go up for all the reasons Christian just said? Eventually, you're going to have Susie Senior look at the price of a Med Supp and just gawk at it and be like, what? You want me to pay $300 a month? I only make $1,900 a month. And I have to pay $300?
I'll give you a perfect example. We have a client right now. I just talked with one of our agents internally about it yesterday. She's 94. Her Med Supp is pushing $400 a month. And
I can't believe it. I would think it's even more.
Right. It's like, that's actually not bad.
Yeah, I was like, 400 is a steal.
So she wants to look at MA. She's very open to it, right? Because she's like, I don't want to pay this anymore. I don't feel like I'm getting the value for what it's paying out, that kind of thing. And our preference is not to put a 90-something-year-old on an MA. But, at 94, her starting rate, if we rewrote her rate, it would lower it, but it still would be pretty high. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, just because of her age. I think you hit it right on the head, right? Like, the direction we're going is pricing out the consumer.
Yes, 100%.
And
someone mentioned on the stream here, they said, I thought this was a good way of putting it too, is that the upper middle class and the wealthy, they'll look at that and be like, sure, whatever, right?
Or they'll do. So there's a client I think of in the last year and a half or so that could afford a Med Supp, I'm pretty sure. Someone very well. That did the math and was like, this doesn't make sense. Remember?
Right there.
Your dad.
It's true. They could have afforded a Med Supp, but they did the math and chose not to. But the senior market, if you look at the senior market as a whole, and you were to take a sliding scale on income, and let's say the average premium of Med Supp goes up to $300 a month, the number of seniors who can afford, as that premium continues to go up, all of a sudden the vast majority of seniors get priced out so fast.
And even the ones that can't afford it, let's take your dad as the example, right?
Yeah.
Just because you can't afford it doesn't mean it's a better value for you.
Correct.
Like,
absolutely.
The question becomes, is your annual premium more likely to charge you more than you'd spend in medical copays, the way the Medicare Advantage plan is structured? And for a lot of people, the answer to that question is yes. You throw a hospital indemnity plan on with it or something like that, a cancer plan, you're still saving a buttload of premium and you're not paying that much out of pocket. Not every area is the same. Understood. But in a lot of areas, this is the reality. You put a $35 GTL hospital indemnity plan with a $0 premium MA. Do you think more people than not will pay more in copays than their annual premium on the Med Supp? I would argue no, probably not.
The majority,
they're gonna spend less in copays than they'd pay on the annual premium.
Yeah, I agree.
With a Med Supp, more and more seniors are figuring this out. I feel like you are locked into that. Let's say your premium's $2,000 a year, $3,000 a year, whatever it is, right? You're paying that before you ever step into a doctor's office. It's gone. It's just gone. So if you go on an MA, what's the chances of you spending more than that in copays? For some people, it's an obvious thing. It's a math equation at the end of the day.
Right.
But yeah, so like I kind of never understood that argument of like, oh, the wealthy people can pay for it. The wealthy people are smart. That's why they're wealthy. They can do math. You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand that logic.
They would be the only ones that could afford it.
Right.
Is I think the point of that is the average senior, especially if they're living off Social Security, which I would argue the majority of seniors are probably fall into that demographic. They're literally check to check based on their Social Security payment showing up. Mm-hmm. With that Med Supp premium continuing to climb, they'll just start saying no without even thinking, because the idea of paying that much per month is impossible. And I do agree with you. I think for the vast majority of seniors, the risk of paying out of pocket for the average year, because there's a lot of healthy seniors. I mean, you just talked about someone who lived in their 90s, right? One of our clients in their 90s. You think over the past 20 years she's been on Medicare? She's been in the hospital a bunch? Probably not. Maybe she's had some. I have no idea. I'm totally speculating. But the point is, if you're a healthy senior, you might not use your healthcare that much. And if you're not using your healthcare that much, why would you pay $300, $400 a month? It just the math doesn't pencil on that. You're spending money for something you're not using.
Yeah. There was one more question I wanted to touch on. I know we're over, but
we are in overtime, baby.
We're in overtime. Yeah.
Extra minutes.
James asked another really good follow-up question. We'll kind of call it after this one, but or maybe we can touch on Keith's too. I'll try to give quick answers because Keith asked a good question. Isn't that really based on doctors only wanting to bill original Medicare? How do you convince those gatekeepers to use MA, overpaying them? It'll become a conversation of you either contract with the MA company or you go out of business. We've seen this before.
Yeah.
We've seen times in history. I remember when I was in high school, there was a big national thing going on because my father was in the business, where there was doctors taking a stand and not taking Medicare. So there was a portion of time where like 20-30% of doctors didn't take original Medicare because they didn't like the fee schedule. And a bunch of those doctors went under, baby. So doctors care about their pocketbook, don't be mistaken, more than anything else. So once it starts costing them business, they're not going to take that hard stand. We've seen it time and time again. So that'd be my answer there.
Absolutely.
I agree. Managed care is the future. I feel like HMOs are going to be a big push for carriers. Reason easier to carriers to control administrative and costs of services compared to PPOs. Your thoughts on this, please? Yeah, I definitely agree. In a lot of states, we're seeing HMO point of service plans. So like HMO point of service plans, some of those big national carriers offer a national network to where you can tap into their network in any state that they offer plans. So it's not that necessarily that you can go out of network, but you have out of state benefits with a network in that state. And that seems to be like a viable option where they can control costs. You can the member can tap into those out of state, networks and things like that. But yeah, I could see, I see less PPOs, more HMOs, but I still think there's a place for the PPOs. That's kind of market dependent as well. But yeah, the PPOs are a little bit more risky because they can't control the cost as much.
Well, preventative healthcare too is also the future. And I think that's what HMOs really try to focus on, right? So, I think the science and the math has shown that the more energy and effort and money that goes into preventative care, typically that ends up yielding cost savings for the individual, for the carrier, and they typically are healthier and live longer. So yeah, I think HMOs are definitely more likely to be on the forefront moving forward. We got a question here. Allstate, question mark. Christian, your thoughts? Go back and watch the episode.
Watch the episode from the beginning, please.
Yeah, listen.
We spent a good bit of time on it already.
Yeah, that one's been answered.
Yeah.
I think we should jump into final thoughts. We're almost 10 minutes over, you guys. Great episode. Lots to talk about. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I think it's going to be something that we'll continue to discuss here on the Seven Figures Robust podcast. Christian, final thoughts on Allstate shutting down their Medicare Supplement product, and is Med Supp in trouble? Episode 103.
So I want to reiterate what I said earlier. Like, I am not super bias MA anti-Med Supp. I'm really not. I love the Med Supp product, and I am very optimistic and hopeful that there will be ways to find ways to keep it viable and have that, yin and yang going forward. I think it would really suck if we got into a situation where it was really just which Medicare Advantage plan do you want, and that was the conversation we had with the members. But I don't think at the same time we can ignore what we're seeing and some of the trends that we're seeing. It's just something to pay attention to. Doesn't mean that you burn the boats with Med Supp right now. I could be wrong. Could be a rare occurrence.
Admitting the possibility.
And I would like to be wrong. I don't want to be right about this. But my prediction with Med Supp is not that it's just going to snap your fingers and one day it disappears and it's not viable. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying it's not viable today. We're still selling it today, of course. We'll do millions of dollars of premium as an organization this year. But what I'm saying is, if you pay attention, I think if it is going to fall into more obscure areas, it's going to happen slowly but surely, gradually. And then all of a sudden it's like a long-term care.
Oof.
That's kind of what if
like a ghost story. That's what I just heard. Heard a ghost story here on the pod this morning.
If you put a gun to my head and I had to tell you with the most certainty, most accuracy of what will happen, and then we look in a crystal ball and we'll see how right I am, and if I'm, right enough, I'll get to live. That would be my prediction.
If I'm right enough, I get to live. I love the confidence, guys. My final thoughts. I share those feelings with Christian of like, I don't want this to be the future of Med Supp. We talk a lot about the death of Med Supp, Med Supp's funeral. And it's not that we're cheering on that to happen. I know we kind of make light of it and we joke about it. And some of you might interpret that as like, we're cheering for Med Supp to die. I came into the industry, if you heard my story this week, I came into the industry 10, 12 years ago. Specifically on the Medicare side 10, 12 years ago. And Med Supp was everything. Med Supp was everything at that time. Early Lead Heroes marketing was all Med Supp. That was like all we did was Med Supp when we first got started. I loved Med Supp. I still love you, Med Supp. I do still love you, Med Supp, no matter how old and frail you're getting.
The romance is still there.
It's still there. The flame's still alive between me and Med Supp. So I don't want anyone to watch this or listen to this and think that we are anti-Med Supp. That's really not the case at all. I would love to be wrong on this. I would love for some freak accident to happen and Med Supp comes storming back, and somehow Benjamin Button reverses age, and Med Supp's 20 again, and we're in love.
20 again. Easy
so,
there, Shannon Sharp.
I'm a huge fan of Med Supp still today, and here's my honest prediction about the future of Med Supp is I think it'll always be there. Just like Christian mentioned, long-term care. Long-term care is still here today. You can still get long-term care. Is it harder to get? Yes. Are the premiums a lot higher? Yes. Does it still make sense for the right people and they're still signing up for long-term care today right now as we're talking? Yes. Yes. And I think Med Supp, it's a really great analogy. I think it'll still be a niche product. And if you're a true Medicare broker, you should almost always have that in your toolbox, because you never know when you're going to need it, right? You never know when it's going to fit with that client or with that situation. So that's my final thoughts, you guys. What an episode. We're getting long. Every episode this week we went over. So extra time for you guys. Extra time for you guys.
I think that 2-hour episode set our staminas a little higher. It was an issue. Episode 100, the 2-hour episode.
100. We broke the 100 threshold, and now there's no going back.
Now every episode will be longer than the last. Will be 3-hour episodes before we go. Guys,
Facebook has a 8-hour limit. So if we do ever decide to try to do a telethon, we can do 8 hours until Facebook shuts this down.
All right, everybody. We appreciate you watching all the way to the end, no matter how you're watching, whether you're watching live or whether you're watching the replay on various platforms. Do us a favor, comment on the live stream if you're watching in the Facebook group 7-Figure Medicare Agent for a chance to be entered into Freebie Friday. Make sure if you're watching on YouTube to like, comment, and subscribe on the channel. We are 5 subscribers, I want to say, away from 100 on that channel.
Woo!
Very new. It's the best
sub
place
for sub,
to find.
baby.
Sub for sub.
Sub for sub. Let's go.
It's going to be the best place long-term to see the historical full-length video episodes of the show, since Facebook only keeps them for 90 days at this point. Make sure to give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, and make sure to subscribe on audio-only platforms like Spotify and Apple. And we will see everyone on the next show. Here's to your massive success. Thanks, everybody.
Happy selling.